strong, empowered, authentic.
What's up, Ginger Nation? This is Tosh.
This is Darren, and you are listening to the Authentic
Ginger Podcast. Welcome to the Authentic Ginger Podcast. I'm Tosh Taylor.
And I'm Darren Roach, and on today's show we have Jillian Crooks. Jillian, a multiple sclerosis and autoimmune nutritionist. I'm getting this off of your profile on Instagram, Jillian. Jillian helps women with MS fight and eliminate fatigue with diet, lifestyle, and mindset to get back to their quality of life. Now, she's also been living with, I hope I get this right, living with MS for 26 years. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, you are very correct.
Amazing. Well, I want to welcome you to the show, Jillian. It's been a long time coming.
Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
And we start every Authentic Ginger Podcast with a little story about you, Jillian, and what it was like for you growing up as a redhead.
Ooh, it was okay. I did not like my hair growing up. I did not like to be a redhead. I didn't like to be called Carrot Top. I always seemed to stand out anywhere I went, and I got that attention. So that was kind of meh. My mom would never let me dye my hair either, so I couldn't change the color. But now I love my hair. But growing up, it wasn't always fun, I suppose.
Yeah. And you have your hair is really red, and I find that like a lot of reds die down. Like my color has definitely died off throughout the years, but yours has stayed quite vibrant.
Yeah, it has. It has.
Yeah.
Although, if you were to look closely, there's some little white things starting to pop in.
Those are called natural highlights, my friend. Natural highlights. Yeah.
Well, I like to call it beauty.
Yeah. Little wisdom in there. Where did you grow up anyway? Now we're here. You're also on the East Coast, like Darren and I. But did you grow up in the Greater Moncton area, or where did you grow up?
I grew up in Sackville, New Brunswick.
So Sackville, for anybody listening that doesn't know where that is a pretty small town. It's a college town, and I'm going to guess that there probably wasn't an awful lot of redheads there with you.
That's a really good guess. Yeah, there was myself and my older brother.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was it.
That was pretty much it in a town of, 6,000 people when
That's
university's
crazy.
In. So, are your parents redheads? Do you know where the ginger comes from?
So my dad had, like, when he would grow in a beard, it would be red. So it was from my dad's side, the Scottish side of the family. Yeah.
Okay.
So I sort of announced at the start of the show, doing your intro, that you've been dealing with MS for the last 26 years, and I'm curious to know, when that first started, and how you've managed to maneuver into the space that you're in now, and if that was something that started even 26 years ago, the health and wellness side of your career and your personality and all that. Does that kind of stem from the start, or was it like a gradual piece? And we'll get into what that is after you kind of give us that little bit of a snippet.
Yeah. So when I was growing up in Sackville, I was pretty athletic, into sports. So health was a priority for my family at that time. But then when I was in Mount A, I went to Mount A, stayed at Sackville. But in between years at Mount A, I would go out west to Banff and work on top of a mountain. But then at 19, when I was doing that, that's when I got diagnosed with MS. And it's almost like as soon as that day I got diagnosed, that was the day I kind of gave up on my health, gave up on everything, and very much lived under the label of MS. I wasn't given very good news. I still remember hearing the neurologist say that day, he's like, Jillian, you got to lower your expectations of what life's going to be like. You're going to be in a wheelchair by the time you're 40. And I was 19. So I'm like, okay, so my life is over. So I believed that it was. And then it just felt like it was. Like I was miserable for about 10 years. And I actually ended up in a wheelchair at 21.
Wow.
When I lost the use of my leg. And then it would get better, then get worse. It's relapsing remitting MS. That's at the form that I have at that time. So I would have a flare of some sort, then get better, and then have another flare. But it wasn't really until my daughter was born at the age of 30 where that was the key thing in me getting myself together and starting to take care of my health.
Wow.
It was her. Yeah.
Unreal.
She needed the mother that she deserved. So that's what I was a pin cushion for a lot of medications out there. And I still, I believe there's a time and place for medication, but I needed to look at something that I could control in my life, because you feel very much out of control with a diagnosis of a chronic illness, right? You think your body's going crazy. So what could I control? I could control the way I thought. I could control what I put into my mouth, and I could control the way I was living. And those three things were like key to where that got me to where I am today. Yeah. Like even like within 3 weeks of those changes, I had this new like wave of energy I hadn't like felt in years. So that was,
that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
What a story. And we've had a genealogist on recently, and I'm curious to know, I'm wondering, and I know you're not going to know the answer to this. And I don't know if Tosh and I would either, but I'm very curious to know if that has anything, if red hair has any, we talk about pain and pain tolerance. Although this was a battle of the mind where you decided that, enough is enough. I'm going to take matters in my, I love what you said. I can control this, this, and this. And that's power words right out of the gate here in this conversation. I'm like, if we stop right now in the conversation, I'm good to go. Like we could just stop right now. It's fine. But that's really truly amazing. And I was thinking, as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, geez, I really wonder if this genealogy piece has anything to do with what's going on and what's happened with you over the years, which I think is truly remarkable, but likely it's not. It's all you, it's all mind. And that brings you to where you are today, which is, when did you start looking at, sharing this new wisdom that you brought into yourself and your wellness? When did that start to expose to others?
So I've been a nutritionist now for 8 years. So yeah. Okay. So 8 years ago.
Right.
I just couldn't believe the changes, like how much power food has, but it has good powers and it has bad powers in our lives too, depending on how we choose to use it.
Sorry.
So yeah,
bad
so I
needed
to get the word out there. I just needed to help people because I know what it's like on the flip side, especially, with a chronic illness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, Darren, you brought up something interesting there, and we did kind of debunk the fact that redheads have a higher pain tolerance or a lower pain tolerance in that episode. And it's legit, like even like, there's brunettes that have a higher pain tolerance and a lower pain tolerance, and blondes. It's just that redheads are talked about more often, which I'm totally cool with. But but I do wonder, taking it back to like 19, you already were self-aware enough to know that there was something going on, which is really impressive at 19. I know what I was doing at 19, and I definitely didn't know what was going on with my body. What were some of the signs leading up to your diagnosis? And I have to ask, that's quite young to be diagnosed, is it not?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. My first symptoms were numb feet and numb around my waist, but I could feel like my legs. So it just didn't really make sense. And I was a waitress on top of a mountain in Banff when I first started getting these symptoms. And, Tosh, like you shared, I wasn't the healthiest at 19, living away from home, working on top of a mountain. Let's be real about it, right? Yeah. There was some alcohol involved. But I knew that didn't feel normal, like my feet numb and around my waist. So we thought maybe like a pinched nerve or something like that. And I just kind of ignored it. And the more I ignored it, the more it got worse, the slower I was getting and the harder it was to move my feet. And I actually did go to the hospital in Banff, and they said, oh, well, maybe it's diabetes. They tested me for that. It wasn't. Maybe it was Lyme disease, was tested for that. It wasn't. And they said, well, we think you should fly home to New Brunswick and get things sorted out.
Okay.
And then it took about a year before I got the clinical diagnosis of it, before I had lesions show up on my MRI.
One thing that I think that we need to tell people is that you said by 21, you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
You run marathons now. So like you are not still in a wheelchair. Like this is
Whoa. Back up.
I know.
Is this right?
Yeah.
Am I hearing this?
Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah. So after my daughter was born, my daughter's 17. So after she was born, about 9 months after her birth, my feet went completely numb, lost all feeling in my feet. And and I never got the feeling back. So my neurologists and doctors were saying, well, the disease is probably progressing into secondary progressive, which means I'm probably always going to have numb feet. So, but then the more I kind of got, like 40 pounds of weight off with all these changes in my nutrition without even focusing on weight loss and all this new energy, I'm like, screw it. If I can do that, I'm going to remember and try to run again. So I started like running 1 minute, walking 1 minute, running 1 minute, walking 1 minute, going around the block. Not able to feel my feet, maybe shuffling more than running at that time at first, but then I just stuck to it and it just got better and better and better. And I was able to run longer and longer and longer. And then I did my first 5-kilometer race. And I remember that day, thinking in my head, like, what the heck are you doing? Like, you have MS, you can't do this. I almost walked away from the start line of that race.
Wow.
Just because I'm like, what the heck's going on? So anyway, I ran the race, not the most graceful runner, but I did it. And I knew then that I'm like, okay, if I can do that, then I can just keep going. So then a 10K, and then
Jesus,
I thought I really want to do a half marathon. And then that happened. And then I tried and failed many years, probably about 5 years to actually run a full marathon, but body would shut down during training or injuries would come and stuff. But then I did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you did a full.
I did a full marathon. Yeah. Now I'm doing triathlons. Yeah.
Ironman next. No big deal.
Yes. Yeah.
So if this is happening, and this has happened, as things are progressing with your miraculous, recovery, if you will, have people started to, when did people start to reach out saying, well, how did you do this? And can you help me? And were these people, as well diagnosed with MS, if they've reached out, or does it matter?
So that's a great question. So in my practice in Moncton, locally at Groove Wellness and at Rehab One, I see a variety of people with different health issues. Doesn't have to be specific to MS, but online and my Instagram, it's specific 100% MS, but that is my specialty as well. Excuse me. So I've had people reach out from all over the world. After, my story's been shared, on different platforms. So people contact me that way, or they find me on social media, and
Yeah, you're very active on social.
Through my silly reels that I
they work, man. They work.
Oh man.
I hate doing them too. I despise it. But they work. And I would, there's got to be so many people that reach out to you because, like you said, when you got the diagnosis, downhill. Like because that's your mental health right out the window. And so many people must say to you, I never believed that this could happen. I never, because, if you think about it, besides you, the only other person I've ever heard of who's gotten not better, but has sustained it. I mean, you got better, but I don't know about Montel Jordan is where I'm going with this, right? You remember him? The TV.
Yes.
Yeah.
Montel Williams.
Williams. Thank you. Yeah. And like, he has sustained a wonderful life. As far as anybody can tell. So you know what I mean? Like, they're not reaching out to that guy. You're far more easily accessible. So how can you help me with my life and improve? And I don't have MS, but I've gone through a major period of my life where my body is super weird, and you were the first person I thought of going to, because if it's not MS, you at least know about autoimmune.
100%.
Yeah. And that's like, you have helped me immensely. I learned so much from you when we were working together. And it just, anything that, like, I know we're talking specific MS, but really anything with you on your nutritionist side of things is unbelievable because you're so knowledgeable. You've really, like in the past 8 years, have soaked up everything, as far as I'm concerned anyway.
And I love learning too. And I like to take an approach that's realistic to people, and it's very individualized, right? So it has to be, when I work with people, my main goal is that we create a lifestyle that's healthy for them, but that's also enjoyable. Mm-hmm. They have to enjoy it. Yeah. You can't be miserable with your food or it's not going to last.
Yes.
So my approach is like that, and try and make it real and meet people where they are, and build that bridge to take them to where they want to go.
Because you've been there, there's no judgment on your behalf either, which is great.
Yeah. And nothing's perfect. I am not perfect in my nutrition. There's going to be days where I'm going to slip in gluten because I'm human. Yeah. But it's consistency and balance about it. However,
yeah. Sometimes pizza's too good. Yeah.
Right.
I recently was diagnosed with sleep apnea, and a very aggressive sleep apnea. So I'm at the very high end, and I really feel like the doctors have said it's never going to get better. In other words, it's treatable, it's not curable. So I'm like, okay, well, fair. And I really think that the nutrition is going to be a key point for us, for me, and for my family as well. It's not a big thing, but it's to me, sleeping with a mask for the rest of my life is, kind of what I have to stare down at the barrel. And nutrition, I think, is going to be a big thing for us. So it's
yeah. What's interesting though, and I don't know if this is because of redheads, with MS, most people with MS can't tolerate the heat. It makes your body feel weird, and you get very sluggish. It usually exasperates numbness and tingling and pain.
Yep.
For me, the cold does that. I need to be in the heat.
Weird.
Vitamin
it's complete opposite. But
yeah,
my whole life I've been complete opposite for all those things, and I always related it to the red hair.
Well, we are unicorns, so
right?
Yeah, and you know what? There might be a solution to that, a reason for that. I believe, if I'm no scientist, which I'm not, but I will say that having redheads produce more vitamin D, which means if you're in the sun, I'm wondering if that affects it. Here we go again.
Because people with MS are usually very low on vitamin D levels.
Right. Exactly.
So you have red hair. See, there's a damn connection here. Let's call Katerina. We have to call Katerina.
There's so many weird things when it comes to being a redhead. I think that we need to be researched more. And I know that sounds like we're lab rats or something, but I do wonder, even when it comes to your medication, the medication that they were feeding you for years, if it worked differently on you than it would for, that is going to happen with any medicines. But yeah, I do wonder about strange things like that.
And are you on medication now?
No, but I have been in the past. And like I said, I believe there's a time and place for it. I'm not against it by any means. And
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's you handle your MS based on your nutrition, and you did mention gluten and how gluten slips in. Do you find that anyone with MS is affected by gluten, or is that just you personally, or most? Or
I would say most people. So, it's gluten, dairy, processed sugar are kind of the top three that should, try and be removed. But gluten more so than dairy, maybe some people can tolerate. The thing is, when people think, oh, well, I don't have any problems with gluten, they think that it's only going to give them digestive issues, right? So if they're not having digestive issues after they have gluten, they're kind of like, oh, I'm fine with it. But it's not that, right? It's more to it than that, where gluten's, it's pro-inflammatory. So it is going to cause more inflammation. Inflammation is the key driver of chronic illness. So yeah, gut issues, gluten's tough on the gut too. So
yeah.
So for our audience, if they wanted, where do you take a client for the first few steps? What are the first couple of steps you would say, if I came to you and said, look, I'm looking for some help. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's my issue. And I really want food to be the leader of my correction. Where do you take us from the start?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Not all the way, but just how does it go through?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I always offer a free 20-minute consultation before anyone commits with me or I commit with them. We have to make sure we're a good fit. Then, first session is very much an information gathering session. I need to know exactly where this person is currently with their nutrition, with their lifestyle, with their mindset, what season of life, what's their work like, what's their daily schedule, what family members. There's so much I need to see that whole picture, because that's going to determine the next step, right? Because if someone is very new to the idea of that nutrition can help them and they've been eating, more of a processed diet or the standard American diet, then I'm going to do things differently with them than I am with someone like Tosh. You know what you're doing with your nutrition, right? It's just very small changes that I would take her on a different route. But so it's usually, see where they're at with their nutrition, what's realistic to see where we can go. Sometimes it's only one tweak a week that people make, right? If they're not eating breakfast, they got to figure out how they can get breakfast into them within an hour of waking. So we would do that. My approach is very individualized, I guess, is what I'm saying, because there's no one size fits all. We're all different and different things going on in our life, and different things we can handle at certain times. So,
and so in that sense, then you're probably a proponent of certain lifestyles as far as nutrition goes. So, I mean, we all know about a whole foods diet or a whole foods lifestyle versus a vegan lifestyle versus a keto lifestyle versus a standard American, lifestyle. But generally speaking, is it fair to say that we'd want to, we'd want to stay in the Canadian, salads half your plate, the other two quarters are like a protein and a grain or something like that? Do we stick roughly within that range, or are there people that come in that say, I'm a vegan, so how am I going to make a difference if that's the case? Which I'm not, but I'm curious to know if how you would circle around that conversation.
If they were a vegan?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have been a vegan before, so I have a big understanding of that. And it's about combining your plate. And I love that you brought up that about the plate, right? Like half veggies. So it's all about balance. You still got to have your protein, you got to have your fat, and you got to have your fiber every time you eat, right? Key is blood sugar stability. So you have to make that happen. Vegan or however diet someone,
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can we just the plate thing, but the Canadian, what is it called? The pyramid there, the Canadian food map
Food
or whatever.
guide.
Food guide. That's like been debunked, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not a pyramid anymore, Tosh. It's a plate.
It's a plate now. It's a Let's talk about Groove Wellness. You had mentioned Groove Wellness a little bit earlier. Groove Wellness, first of all, I want people to follow you on socials. I was just checking them out there as you guys were talking, because you are so full of free information. I know you said you got that 20-minute session, but like if you're following along on social media, you are just pumping it out. And I want to thank you for that. It's greatly appreciated. I've used quite a few of your recipes.
Hey, nice. Nice.
So where did the idea for Groove come from?
So Groove, I've always wanted to have my own business, right? And I am my own person in my nutrition, but I love the name Groove and Groove Wellness because, people come see me because really they want to get their groove back, right?
I love that.
Want that groove back. So let's do it at Groove Wellness. And that's kind of, how that name came about. Yeah.
I think that's really cool. So what are you offering for services? Is it all one-on-one sessions? Do you do group sessions?
So I've got some really exciting things happening kind of behind the scenes right now. I am working with a business coach to get my signature program online for my MS clients.
Amazing.
Specific to them. Launch date, we're hoping for May 22nd. That's going to be big. Okay, but that's very specific to my women with MS. At Groove Wellness, yes, I do one-on-one consultations. I do have group programs that I run throughout the year. I also have standalone programs that someone can purchase. So all the work's done and they still get consultations with me. And my services are covered under insurance too at Groove.
Awesome.
So if you have
Wow.
insurance for, I fall under the window of naturopath, natural therapist. Yeah. And I have different packages, if you want 4 sessions, if you want 8 sessions, if you want 12. Yeah. Lots of different ways.
Yeah.
And can you do virtual?
Yeah, most of my practice is virtual.
Amazing.
If people want to see me in person, absolutely. I do have office space, so we can do one-on-ones in person as well.
That's very cool. As I say, groovy. Very good. Yeah.
Groovy. See?
I know when we worked together. I'll just give people an example of. So we had our one-on-one consultation, and like literally within an hour, you were like, "Here's your meal plan. Here's your this is your meal plan. This is your shopping schedule." Or like what you need to get at the grocery store, and it was all laid out. And
seriously,
that's what I need. Like I need
Me too.
everything in my life needs to be scheduled. It needs to be in front of me, and it needs to be. And it was just like you were like, here you go, no problem. And it was like personalized to me because at the time we were working together, I was vegan at that point, and not anymore. Actually, back to eating meat. But anywho,
oh gosh, we need to talk about that because me too.
Are you
So
really?
did I.
Yeah. We're all reformed.
Yes.
Yeah. I had to my stomach flared right up, and nobody really cares to know this, but yeah, my stomach flared right up. And I was like, okay, I have to anyway, it turns out it was beans. All the beans I was eating flared my stomach up. So to get protein I've gone back to chicken and nothing else. But,
yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well,
look at us.
Look at us
what
go.
A team we are.
We're getting our groove back here.
Yeah, we're getting our groove on.
That's right.
That's amazing.
And just so we can keep this train going, as far as how people can get in touch with you, what is your Instagram profile?
So on Instagram, I'm Jillian with a G .eat to beat MS.
Perfect.
And I have a Facebook page, Groove Wellness.
Okay.
Is there as well. Yeah.
And that's groovewellness.com. mygroovewellness.com is the website for Groove Wellness, right?
Yes. mygroovewellness.com.
Groove Wellness. Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. I want to make sure that people get that because the fact that you can do virtual, that means anybody around this goddamn world can call you up and have a conversation and make it so and get their groove back. So I'll be a proponent of promoting this through my channels as well. So
awesome. Thank you.
I also would like to hear from any other redheads that might potentially have MS to see if you guys have the similar symptoms. I think that would be interesting to see. And then we really got to find a doctor to get on this. Just a geneticist or whatever it may be, because that would be super interesting. But wouldn't
that be neat to find?
That would be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Anyways, that's
awesome.
That's amazing. Well, listen, Jillian, we're not going to take up any more of your day. You have people to get better, so this is amazing. But I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing what's out there in the future for you. And it'd be awesome. So thank you again.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for having me.
You've been listening to the Authentic Ginger Podcast.
Become a part of the Ginger Nation by liking, subscribing, following, and leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This podcast was produced by Tosh Taylor of the Podcast Hub Productions. Find her online at podcasthub.ca.